Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Oh my giddy aunt. I heard music, and music is mine. I do apologise. I was just playing my recorder. Well, it is a really nice music, and you play that so well. Oh, well, thank you very much. I do my best. Jamie doesn't like it, though, most of the time. But I need to take your music because I am the embodiment of music. Oh dear. Oh, well, it looks like I will have to stop you because I am the doctor. And how do you plan to stop me? Ah. The anti-devil's cord! You fool! Oh. The one who waits is almost here. Hold on. Wrong incarnation. You're number 2. I need number 15. Or whatever they call themselves at that point in time. Ow! Dog called Fred. Bye-bye. Was it Maestro or something? Whatever you called yourself? Well, that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise. I can't stay much longer. I have to get back to Jamie and Zoe. We're going on another adventure. We're going to go and meet the Crotons. Yes, the Crotons. It's actually pretty good, to be fair. It's not one of the best, but it's pretty good. Definitely a Be Kind Rewind episode, as the reviewer of these reviews said last week. Well, ta-ta then.
But, Second Doctor, Daddy, Patty, Tratty, Based!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 1 Bad Wolf / Series 14 / Season 40, Episode 2, The Devil's Cord. Okay, so The Devil's Cord. This is the second episode of the series, but it does feel like it should have been a bit later, maybe Episode 5, due as there's some setup for the finale briefly shown and mentioned, and also the whole time gap thing that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, either from watching the episode or because it's been a bit of topical discussion and speculation across the fandom since May. The episode also comes quite soon after the giggle, which it also ties in with, so maybe this one should have been saved for episode 4 or episode 5, and then we push Boom forward to be episode 2 with 73 yards right after that. Maybe if it's episode 4, we could have Rogue and then Dot and Bubble either where they are or swapped, as some people have been saying Dot and Bubble should be before the finale due to the whole Susan Twist connection and the Doctor Ruby starting to notice it, etc. We will discuss Susan Twist as we go along. Let's just say that she has so far made a few appearances in the series in multiple roles so far, plus also one in Wild Blue Yonder, which is leading up to the finale. Of course, it's all connected. But more on that later as we go through. In this episode, she just has a funny cameo as the tea lady. So the plot of The Devil's Cord is that the Doctor and Ruby arrive in 1963, but in February, not November, so no 23rd November connections this time round. They arrive in 1963 to see the Beatles recording one of their earlier albums at EMI Studios, later renamed Abbey Road Studios, the world-famous studios. And so they go to watch them record an album and listen to their music, but something's gone wrong with music, and it's sort of affected the whole world, and it's changed a few things, such as Russia threatening Finland, and London being a bit more smoggier than it was supposedly at the time. Not to mention, a lot of people seem to be secretly sad and depressed, as if something's missing, but music is considered to be an thing. Like, it's not really a thing anymore. People kind of got some sense out of it, but it still makes them decent money for a little bit to give the Beatles, Cilla Black and others a decent wage, etc. And yeah, it's a bit strange that, as it's established, it's 1925 when music is taken, and everything starts to go downhill for music. But it's less than 40 years to the events of the main time period of the episode, and it's still kind of there's still gasps of it left. I think that's a bit of a either a plot hole or something that was kind of overlooked when writing. Anyway, as we discover, it is a godlike being called Maestro, played by the delicious Jinx Monsoon, who is camping the character up to, well, if Neil Patrick Harris took the Toymaker to 11, Maestro must be a 22, because Maestro is so fucking awesome. Jinx Monsoon is so delicious. I thought she'd be delicious when she had that reveal video back in April last year. Thought she was going to be great. I didn't think she was quite as delicious when I first saw the episode, but the rewatches and other clips and thinking about it have been like, actually, yeah, it's delicious. Maybe not quite as delicious as I was expecting it, but still, delicious. And what a great villain. Overdoes the camp and the exaggerations a lot, but this is a more fun, campy episode, which these two first episodes kind of got a bit of a slack for the series being too campy, silly, and light-hearted and funny, etc. At the very start of the series, people were already criticizing the series for being too campy and silly. Oh boy, would the next couple of episodes probably change their minds on that aspect? I mean, yeah, there's still a bit of camp later on down the line, but it's these first two episodes is probably where it peaks. So, oh boy, are people gonna have their minds changed about this series being too camp and silly pretty damn quickly, as early as episode 3. More on that next time. But yeah, it turns out Maestro, played by Jinx Monsoon, has been stealing music, as them are the god of music. And they took it after a genius, Timothy Bentwick, managed to find the Devil's Cord and play it, and Maestro came in and took all of his musical genius out of him, and then proceeded to then do the rest for the entire world. And 38 years later, because it took place in 1925, probably mentioned that, 38 years later, and we got the last stretch of music left with the Beatles and Cilla Black and this orchestra, probably recording a film score or something. They didn't really say, doing these teeny bits of uninspired music points, which is funny because I've Got a Dog Called Fred is actually secretly really bloody good. I can't get that song out of my head, even more so than Twist at the End. More on that later, if I remember. And yeah, I just play that 30 seconds on, or however long it is, in my head. It's really bloody good, even though it's not supposed to be. By the way, there's a really good edit out there where someone's merged the clip of the song with clips from Flux featuring Carvanista. It's a really good edit of that, ending with a Carvanista howl from Flux Chapter 6. So yeah, really good edits from this series, not just the Doctor Who poop memes like "You're doing it, mate" and Evil Dan and don't forget to click to subscribe and Teton Parts again, etc. By the way, do check out that channel and the secondary channel. These are really good parodies and shorts, etc. There's some really good memes out there as well. Anyway, so the Doctor and Ruby are trying to bring back music to the world, and then they discover Maestro. The Doctor seemingly is afraid of Maestro because of the events of the Giggle, so they're now afraid of the Pantheon gods in a way, and they are very hard to beat. Although Ruby says a few things like "you never run, you never hide." At least I think she supposedly says "you never run, you never run." That could be the Mandela effect. But yeah, they haven't really known each other too long, so that's another thing about this maybe should have been mid to later on in the series, middle of later on, like episode 5 or episode 4 or 6, as opposed to number 2. It's a bit soon after the previous episodes, especially since Boom is Ruby's first adventure to another planet. Well, I guess all the expanded media stories where they go to another planet must take place after Boom, which is fine. It just means there's 2 other episodes and potentially other after Church on Ruby Road, and potentially other expanded media stories where they just time traveling on Earth, or maybe just in space. But that's something for next time. But yeah, it's interesting to seeing the Doctor's reaction to Maestro and the whole scene with the Sonic causing basically silence apart from the wind blowing is really cool. The practical effects and the visual effects are really great in this when it merges really seamlessly. Like in the last, well, we've been doing that for the whole era so far. And the CGI I can say for is, I think I did for the 60th specials, they've toned the CGI down to where they mostly need it, following the Jodie Whittaker era, which was very CG heavy, even before Flux, which was made during the fucking pandemic, which kind of makes sense why they would have so much CG, but A, it's toned down, and B, it's not so obvious. They actually use a lot more location sets and practical effects, and it's looking really great. It's a nice soothing down. Of course, they are going to use CG quite a bit in the series, and we'll see a bit more of that later as we go along, but for this episode, it works really well. There's also a pretty good connection to the 1975 story Pyramids of Mars, where the Doctor takes Ruby to the future to show what an alternative future would look like if this evil god wins. Also, put a pin in that connection to Pyramids of Mars, that whole... this scene is basically a homage to a scene in part 3 of that story. Put a pin in that. That's going to be important for, well, at least the Pyramids of Mars connection, at least. That's going to be important for later. Same with the whole the Doctor mentioning Susan thing. Back when he was being a grandfather and living in 1960s London. Put a couple pins in that. So the whole Pyramid of Mars homage scene feels really great and works pretty well with the context of this story, as well as also as setup for a later story down the line as well, and reminding the audience of that older story. But this story also has a couple of connections to the Giggle, which again, maybe it would have worked better if this one was a bit later in the series. There's a bit more time since the Giggle for the stakes to be a bit higher and the Doctor and Ruby's dynamic to be more solidified. Again, maybe halfway through episode 4, episode 5 would have worked a bit better. The third act is also really good with the music battle, which is great in the Doctor and Ruby musicking off to Maestro and the whole teases for the finale, with the Ruby having a hidden song and her having something to do with the one who waits, who's almost here. Again, another reason why it should have been later in the series. It's teasing up that finale, but kind of not too far off. Like it's like episode 2, even out of 8 episodes, it's too early to be doing that. Episode 5 probably would have worked better, but whatever. Yeah, the music the music battle is such a great scene and some really great music. I'll get to talking about the music in a little bit because that's the key part of the story, of course. But it's handled really well. I even like the Beatles saving it. I actually think them doing the chords, even though we haven't had much screen time with them after the Doctor and Ruby's chat with them, or at least John and Paul specifically, the Doctor and Ruby talked with, and then they're the ones who are playing the piano at the end. My only kind of complaint is it's over too damn quickly. It's more so with John and Paul rather than anything else. Like, John and Paul are supposed to be having this sort of character emotional moment where it's connecting with their characters. It's a little quick, and it would have been nice if maybe they were playing all of the chords the Doctor had played as well to re-energize them, and then they play the final chords that the Doctor failed to find. And that's what stopped Maestro, and it builds up a little bit more. Just how the Doctor playing the different chords was building up the to sending Maestro back. I think it could have been built up a bit more. Maybe cut it down for the Doctor a little bit. Maybe just cut a few seconds off. The episode's 50 minutes or 49 minutes, not including Church on Ruby Road and the 60th specials. It's the longest episode of the series after Empire of Death, so it's longer than the other episodes. And I think it could have used those extra couple of minutes, seconds to expand on the Beatles' role in saving the day, even if it's just a few more seconds to show them saving the day with the music skills and coming full circle with their characters. Also, John and Ringo hardly do anything outside of the I've Got a Dog Called Fred scene. So, and also a little bit in the canteen, but then they're off. The lesser known Beatles clearly have the least amount of screen time. And yes, I am aware the Beatles in this episode don't really look much like how the Beatles were. When I was watching the episode, I was trying to look at pictures of how the Beatles looked in 1963 compared to how they look in this episode. And yeah, no amount of hair and makeup are actually going to make these guys look that close to the originals. I mean, they probably are using hair and makeup to actually try and make them look like they're nearer to the originals, but it doesn't quite fit. I mean, for the Doctor Who universe, it's fine. Doesn't really matter too much. You know, these guys are the Beatles. Sure, why not? So, I mean, it's not really something to get all the knickers in a twist about, like they did, like fans did back at the start of May, end of April, when the Doctor Who magazine cover came out. But yeah, I do understand the criticism. I just won't get my knickers in a twist. Again, they're playing a little bit liberty with historical people, like with Sir Isaac Newton in Wild Blue Yonder, which is fine for the Doctor Who universe. It's all fine. But I do understand the criticism. And yeah, George and Ringo don't really get much to do in this. Yay. Yeah, so a couple of nitpicks there. But on the whole, I think it's a pretty damn solid episode. Really brilliant episode as well. It's quite fun, quite imaginative, and really pretty damn great in the script, even if there's a bit of a plot conveniences and contrivances and holes and a bit of questionable bits. It's not a solid script, but it's a fun and entertaining one. Also, June Hudson, Fourth Doctor era costume designer, gets a cameo as one of Maestro's victims, which some fans, and definitely all the non-fans, would say is some sort of disrespect to the classic series. But I think it's actually nice that she gets a cameo as a character in this story, even if it's one who does end up being a victim of the villain. Of course, the best part of this story is the whole point of the story, the music. The music is fan-bloomin-tastic. After a couple of years away from the programme, Murray Gold came back refreshed and re-energised after the music in the Capaldi era was pretty damn great, but it was starting to kind of... It wasn't quite as great as it used to be, apart from a couple of notable iconic tracks. You all know the ones, but besides a few notable iconic tracks, things were starting to kind of wind down a bit. The Series 10 soundtrack's not even out yet. For some reason, I don't know why it hasn't come out yet. Marigold said it's going to come out after he came back, and it still hasn't. There's a whole Twitter or Facebook account dedicated to it, and I think a lack of Series 10 soundtrack sort of kind of helps example that why the those who love Marigold's music but do kind of feel like it kind of does get a little bit weaker as at least towards the end of Capaldi era. And without that Series 10 soundtrack, it doesn't really help its case. I've just realised whilst I was recording, I forgot to put this on. I said I was going to wear the bloody thing for all reviews following, starting from Flux to Halloween Apocalypse. I forgot to wear it last time, but I threw it on for a character in the sketch. So, yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'll have to try and remember that. Anyway, back to point. But when Murray came back for the Bad Wolf era, first of all, music in Destination Scarrow wasn't that particularly brilliant, but thankfully that was a one-off because from the Star Beast onwards, it's fan-bloody-tastic, and this episode really dedicates itself to the music, the score, and the soundtrack, and even being almost musical, like a semi-musical. It's got like 3-4 songs in it, I think. I've got a dog called Fred, the I Love You Cilla Black song, Daddy Was So Mean by Maestro, and the twist at the end, plus some instrumentals such as Ruby's lesbian breakup lament song, and of course all the piano playing. Also, Three Blind Mice is an important instrumental track in this episode as well. We can also now include the 15th Doctor amongst the Doctors who pretty much not only break the fourth wall, but kind of know they might be in a TV show. Now he joins the likes of the 4th Doctor, who occasionally he broke the fourth wall to talk to the audience, and the 12th Doctor, who practically smashed the fourth wall in the Lake two-parter, specifically Before the Floods, in its pre-title scene. The music in this episode is possibly the strongest in terms of the uses in the episode. Whether or not it's the best score for an individual episode or story is up for debate, and there is a lot of iconic Murray Gold tracks from series 1 through 6, 7, might even throw 8 in there. But this one is definitely a contender for best use, and the story revolving around music and music being stolen, it's all really great. And I already mentioned the whole silence thing working really effectively as well. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. I even like There's Always a Twist at the end, and although I do think the sequence might be a bit indulgent, I think it would have been better if they had it as like a Miniso Blu-ray, DVD Blu-ray extra, or on YouTube. Just kind of like a bonus scene. I'm wondering if there was any deleted scenes on this episode, or any that were reduced in time, so they could have this sequence. The bit on the Abbey Road crossing and the TARDIS smacking their doors open and close again at the very end to the music, probably could have been cut. I think those ones don't need to be included, and maybe they could have said that it's some of Maestro's powers are still kind of around for a little bit. It's kind of dying down, so let's use them whilst we can for a bit of fun and then let them go. Much like how they were able to duplicate the TARDIS with some of the Toymakers' leftover power in the Giggle before that one, that power sort of faded away. Yeah, that would have made quite a bit of sense if they said that at the end. Maybe if they said that instead of the whole dancing on Abbey Road. Well, dance on Abbey Road, but not like the crossing be like a piano keys. But whatever. The rest of the sequence is pretty fun, even if it's a bit unnecessary and could have been saved for perhaps a YouTube or DVD/Blu-ray extra. And the episode could have ended with the Doctor just winking at the camera, saying that there's always a twist at the end. And yeah, just end there. That would have been fine. But for what it is, it's fun, and I quite enjoy it. Though, surprisingly, I've Got a Dog Called Fred might actually be the best song from the episode. Considering that was supposed to be a not very good song. Same for the Cilla Black one. By the way, I met the actress who plays Cilla Black. She's absolutely lovely. So yeah, overall, The Devil's Court is a really fun and rollicking romp of an episode. It's a bit darker than Space Babies, but it's also ups the camp to the next level, being camper than even some of the Colin Baker era stories. And yet, it works. It's so fun, it's so energetic, and the tone matches what's going on, because yeah, you've got lots of camp stuff, but you've also got a really good balance with Maestro being a dark force, and that she's melding it all together. Such a good balance, and such a great fun rollicking romp. And the music matches really well. Performances are top notch, especially from our leads once again, and from guest actor Jinx Monsoon as the delicious Maestro. Major shout out to Murray Gold for crafting a brilliant music soundtrack for this episode and tying it in with the theme of the story. He should get an award for this episode for its score alone, let alone for the series. But nevertheless, I definitely think praise is mostly deserved for this one. And it looks really great as well, really spectacular and executed really well. The story does have a few plot contrivances here and there, doesn't quite line up, and the time gap for the Doctor and Ruby does imply maybe they had more stories in between, which could have included some of the later ones if the episode had been moved back a few episodes along. But overall, it's a fun, rollicking time. A really good second episode for the series and third outing for the 15th Doctor and Ruby. 15th Doctor, not including the giggle. I will be giving The Devil's Cord I did consider an 8 out of 10, but after watching it again, I was like, no, I had such a good time with this. Fuck it. 9. There we go. 9 out of 10. Yes, I really enjoyed this one. Shoot me, don't. Or I'll shoot you back. Yeah, I really liked this one. I thought it was absolutely fun. I know I was pretty positive on Space Babies, but there was still a couple of weak links there. But this one, despite some plot contrivances and some things that could have been cut or not needed, it's still a really fun romp episode. And it's really brilliant with the music department and with our main guest character, with Maestro, played by Jinx Monsoon. Absolutely brilliant. So, that's it for my review of The Devil's Court. Next time, it is the return of Stephen Moffat with Boom, an episode that I actually wasn't that fond of when it first came out, but kind of liked it a bit more when I saw it again. And when I say not fond of, I did like it. I thought it was good, but I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the greatest episode ever, like a lot of fans were at the time. Or Stephen Moffat has come to save the show, or stuff like that. And I know, actually, it has a lot more of Moffat's more notable trademarks that he had in the later Capaldi era. And yeah, but more on that next time. Whether I will be as positive or more positive than I was on my second viewing, or not so much less positive than my first one, somewhere in the middle, is to be seen. I think my prediction is I'm going to like it, but I'm not going to be all sucking up to it like everyone else was at the time. But yeah, next time is the return of Stephen Moffat with Boom. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.